By 2035, you won't recognize America. And I'm not talking about flying cars or robot butlers. I'm talking about real, massive construction projects happening right now that'll reshape how you travel, where you live, and honestly, whether the US stays on top. Some of these are so ambitious, they make the moon landing look like a weekend DIY project. So let's dive in. Number 10. The Texas Bullet Train. Picture this. You're in Houston. You need to get to Dallas. That's a 4-hour drive through some of the most soul-crushing highway traffic in America. Or a flight that, once you factor in getting to the airport 2 hours early, security, theater, and baggage claim, also takes about 4 hours. But soon, 90 minutes. On a train. Going 205 miles per hour. Texas Central Railway is building the first true high-speed rail line in American history, and it's using Japanese Shinkansen technology. You know, the bullet train that's been operating since 1964 without a single passenger fatality. That's right. Japan figured this out 60 years ago, while America was busy building more highways. The route is 240 miles of elevated track, which means no traffic, no crossings, and no drunk driver swerving into the train lane at 3 a.m. because there are no train lanes to swerve into. The whole thing floats above the Texas landscape like a concrete and steel promise of a future we were supposed to have decades ago. Each train will carry up to 400 passengers. That's like taking 300 cars off Interstate 45 every single trip. And they're planning departures every 30 minutes during peak times. Do the math? That's thousands of cars that won't be clogging up one of America's busiest corridors. The cost? Around $30 billion. That sounds insane until you realize Texas spends about $30 billion every few years just maintaining its highways. This is an actual investment, not just throwing money at potholes and wondering why traffic still sucks. But here's where it gets interesting. If Texas pulls this off, and that's a big if given American infrastructure's track record, it's not just a train. It's proof of concept. California's been trying to build high-speed rail for years, and has mainly succeeded in spending money and moving dirt around. If Texas cowboys can make this work, suddenly every major corridor in America has to ask why they don't have one too. Number 9. The Coastal Barrier System. Let's head to Louisiana, where engineers are attempting something that sounds completely insane. They're building a 76-mile-long system of barriers, floodgates, and pump stations to protect the greater New Orleans area from storm surges. Hurricane Katrina killed over 1,800 people in 2005. The storm surge was 28 feet high in some places. That's like having a 3-story building made of angry ocean crashing into your city. And climate change isn't exactly making hurricanes calmer. You know what? Let's build what the Dutch have been building for centuries. Massive barriers that can close when a storm comes and stay open the rest of the time. The centerpiece is a storm surge barrier across Lake Borgne that'll be one of the largest in the world. We're talking 300-foot wide navigation gates that can slam shut when things get ugly. The whole system includes 26 miles of levees, 3 pump stations that can move water like it insulted their mothers, and enough concrete to probably build a small mountain. Cost: $14.5 billion. And climbing, because construction projects never ever come in under budget. But here's why this matters beyond Louisiana. Miami is watching. Charleston is watching. New York, which got absolutely wrecked by Hurricane Sandy in 2012, is definitely watching. If this works, and the early phases are already operational, it becomes the blueprint for how coastal American cities survive the next century. And let's be honest, half of America's economy lives right next to the ocean, which is getting angrier and higher every year. This isn't just about New Orleans. It's about whether coastal cities are even viable in 2050. Number 8. The I-10 Mobile River Bridge. This one's in Alabama, and it sounds boring until you realize how incredibly not boring it is. They're replacing a tunnel under the Mobile River with a massive cable-stayed bridge that'll be the 3rd longest in North America. The current situation is 2 lanes in each direction, going through a tunnel that opened in the 1970s when gas was 36 cents a gallon, and nobody thought traffic would ever get worse. Surprise! It got worse. Way worse. The tunnel floods, it closes randomly, and moving freight from the port of Mobile, one of the fastest-growing ports in America, is a nightmare. The new bridge will have 6 lanes, A 215-foot clearance for ships, which is higher than a 20-story building, and construction that's already underway with completion expected in the early 2030s. The cable-stayed design means two massive towers holding the whole thing up with cables, making it look like something from a sci-fi movie. Why does this matter? Because Interstate 10 is the southernmost coast-to-coast highway in America. It connects Jacksonville, Florida to Santa Monica, California, and the Mobile Corridor is one of the worst bottlenecks on the entire route. Fix this, and suddenly shipping from the port of Mobile gets 20% faster. That's everything from Amazon packages to industrial equipment to the produce in your grocery store. The project costs $2.1 billion. For context, that's about what the U.S.'s military spends every 3 days. So yeah, maybe we can afford some bridges. Number 7. That is 7. The Gateway Hudson Tunnel. Alright, let's talk about something that should terrify every person on the East Coast. There are two train tunnels under the Hudson River connecting New Jersey to New York City. They're 113 years old. They were damaged by Hurricane Sandy's saltwater flooding over a decade ago. And if one fails completely, which experts say could happen literally any day, the entire Northeast Corridor is screwed. We're not talking about inconvenience. We're talking about economic catastrophe. These tunnels carry 200,000 passengers per day on Amtrak and New Jersey Transit. Construction started in 2023, and the new tunnels should be operational by 2035, if everything goes perfectly, which it won't, because nothing ever does. But even finishing by 2037 would be a miracle. Here's why this matters. On a national level, the Northeast Corridor generates 20% of America's GDP. Boston, New York, Philadelphia, Baltimore, Washington, D.C., all connected by these rail lines. If the tunnels fail before the new ones are ready, the economic damage would be measured in trillions with a T. Not over years, over months. This is infrastructure as life support. You don't notice it until it's gone. And then you notice nothing else. Number 6. The Cheyenne Mountain Space Defense Complex expansion. Let's shift gears and talk about something that sounds like it's straight out of a movie. You know, Cheyenne Mountain, the massive hollowed-out granite mountain in Colorado, where NORAD tracks Santa Claus every Christmas. They're massively expanding it. And it's not for Santa. It's got 25-ton blast doors. It's buried under 2,000 feet of granite. And it was designed to keep functioning while the world ended outside. Charming stuff. But now space is contested. China and Russia both have anti-satellite weapons. Space debris is everywhere, and a huge chunk of America's military capability depends on satellites that are, relatively speaking, incredibly fragile. So the U.S. Space Force, yes, that's a real thing now, is expanding the complex to handle modern space warfare command and control. New server rooms with quantum-encrypted communications, expanded blast-resistant quarters for personnel, upgraded power systems that could keep the mountain running independently for months, and all of it buried so deep that nothing short of a direct asteroid impact would take it out. The exact cost is classified, naturally, but estimates range from $5 to $10 billion. That's a lot of money for a hole in a mountain, until you remember that pretty much everything modern society needs, GPS, communications, weather prediction, works because satellites are up there doing their thing. Lose those and we're back to the 1950s, except we no longer know how to navigate by stars or read paper maps. Number 5. The Las Vegas to Southern California high-speed rail. Let's go back to trains, because apparently America is finally remembering that trains are actually good. Brightline West is building a 218-mile high-speed rail line from Las Vegas to Rancho Cucamonga in Southern California, and it's going to be glorious. Right now, driving from LA to Vegas is a special kind of hell. It's 3 to 5 hours depending on traffic, and there's always traffic. The I-15 corridor is one of the most congested in America, especially on Friday evenings when half of Los Angeles decides to lose money in Nevada simultaneously. Brightline's trains will do 200 miles per hour and make the trip in 2 hours flat. No traffic. No bathroom stops at sketchy desert gas stations. No wondering if your car's air conditioning will survive the Mojave. They're using the median of I-15 for most of the route, which is brilliant because the right-of-way already exists. No need to buy up farmland or fight with homeowners associations. Just build down the middle of the highway and watch cars cry as trains zoom past them. Construction is already underway with a target opening of 2028, right in time for the LA Olympics. And yes, the timing is very intentional. Nothing says America's back like foreign visitors taking a high-speed train while Americans sit in traffic wondering when their country got passed by literally everyone else. The project costs $12 billion, funded partly by Biden's infrastructure bill, proving that the federal government occasionally does useful things, which early signs suggest it will. It's going to print money. The Vegas-LA corridor is one of the busiest travel routes in America. People want this. They just haven't had the option before. Number 4. The Columbia River Bridge Replacement. This one's between Oregon and Washington, and it involves replacing a bridge that's so old it was built before the Great Depression. The Interstate 5 bridge across the Columbia River opened in 1917, when cars were still competing with horses for road space. It's a lift bridge, meaning it has to raise and lower to let ships through, which stops traffic completely. This happens about 300 times per year, and it's the only major crossing on I-5 between Canada and Mexico that still does this outdated bridge-raising dance. The replacement, part of the Interstate Bridge Replacement Program, will be a modern fixed-span bridge with multiple lanes, dedicated bus rapid transit, bike and pedestrian paths, and enough clearance that ships can pass underneath without the whole thing turning into a drawbridge. The project costs $6 billion, and both Oregon and Washington are splitting it because neither state can afford to have this bridge fail. And fail is the key word here. The current bridge isn't earthquake-resistant at all. The Pacific Northwest is overdue for a massive earthquake called the Big One that'll make every disaster movie look optimistic. And when it hits, this bridge is toast. So they're building a new one that can survive a 9.0 magnitude earthquake, which requires some absolutely insane engineering. Seismic isolators, flexible connections, deep foundations drilled into bedrock. It's less a bridge and more a $6 billion bet that physics and engineering can beat geological rage. Completion is targeted for the mid-2030s, assuming funding doesn't dry up and politicians don't start fighting about whose state gets more credit. So, we'll see. Number 3, the Permian Basin Pipeline Network. Let's talk oil, because Texas wouldn't be Texas without it. The Permian Basin in West Texas and New Mexico is the most productive oil field in America, producing over 5 million barrels per day. That's more than most OPEC countries. But there's a problem. Getting that oil and gas out of West Texas to refineries on the Gulf Coast requires pipelines, and the current network is maxed out. So companies are building over 5,000 miles of new pipeline infrastructure, both oil and natural gas, creating what's essentially the circulatory system for American energy independence. Now I know what you're thinking. Pipelines aren't sexy. They're controversial. Climate activists hate them. And honestly, they've got good reasons. But here's reality. America uses 20 million barrels of oil per day. Until that changes, and it will change but not by 2035, those barrels have to come from somewhere. Would you rather import it from countries with questionable human rights records? Or produce it domestically with at least some environmental oversight? These new pipelines use modern monitoring technology, drones with thermal cameras flying overhead, sensors every few miles detecting leaks. It's not perfect, but it's better than the alternatives, which are either trucks, which cause way more emissions, or trains, which occasionally derail spectacularly. The network costs around $40 billion across multiple companies, and it's being built right now. Completion of major sections is happening throughout the 2020s and early 2030s, fundamentally reshaping American energy infrastructure. Love it or hate it, this is happening, and it'll keep America energy independent while renewable technology hopefully catches up. Number 2. The Great Lakes Seaway Modernization. Here's one most people have never heard of. The St. Lawrence Seaway, which connects the Great Lakes to the Atlantic Ocean, is getting a massive upgrade. This matters way more than you think. The Great Lakes shoreline touches 8 U.S. states and supports 1.5 million jobs. It's how iron ore gets from Minnesota to steel mills in Indiana. It's how grain gets from Kansas to international markets. It's basically the circulatory system of America's industrial heartland. But the locks and channels were built in the 1950s and are now too small for modern cargo ships. It's like trying to drive a modern semi-truck through roads designed for Model Ts. Technically possible, just incredibly inefficient. The modernization project includes expanding locks, deepening channels, and upgrading port facilities across all 5 Great Lakes. Total cost is estimated at $25 billion spread over multiple decades, with major work happening through 2035. Here's why this matters. Manufacturing is coming back to America. Reshoring, nearshoring, whatever you want to call it. Companies realized that having all their supply chains in China is a terrible idea when global panics happen. So factories are being built in the Midwest again. And the Great Lakes Seaway is the cheapest way to do it. One cargo ship on the lakes can carry as much as 60 trains or 1,000 trucks. The fuel efficiency isn't even comparable. SILPs win by a landslide. Upgrade this system, and suddenly the Midwest becomes competitive again for manufacturing. Ignore it, and watch jobs go to the coasts where port infrastructure actually works. Number 1. The National Semiconductor Corridor. And this isn't just one project. It's a whole ecosystem of chip fabrication plants, or fabs, being built across America right now. TSMC in Arizona, Samsung in Texas, Micron in New York. We're talking over $150 billion in investment, much of it spurred by the CHIPS Act. Why does this matter? Because semiconductors run everything. Your phone, your car, the power grid, weapon systems, AI, everything. Most advanced chips are made in Taiwan, which is about 100 miles from China, which really wants to annex Taiwan, which would give China control over the entire global chip supply. That's bad. Really bad. Lose Taiwan's chip production, and the global economy doesn't just slow down. It stops. Modern civilization has a hard dependency on those chips, and having them all made on one island that's in geopolitical crosshairs is genuinely insane. So America is building its own chip production capability from scratch. Intel's Ohio fab complex alone will be larger than some small countries when it's done, with 2 factories already under construction, and plans for up to 8 total. TSMC's Arizona facilities are already producing chips with more coming online. These aren't small buildings. Each fab is a billion-dollar facility with clean rooms so pure that a single dust particle can ruin an entire batch. The Ohio site, branded as the Silicon Heartland, will eventually employ 20,000 people directly and support maybe 100,000 jobs total when you count suppliers and support services. That's a new mid-sized city built around making the tiny chips that run your life. These fabs are expected to be fully operational in stages throughout the late 2020s and early 2030s, fundamentally changing America's position in the global tech supply chain. By 2035, the U.S. will produce a much larger percentage of the world's advanced semiconductors domestically. Not all of them. That's impossible. But enough that China or anyone else can't hold the world hostage by threatening Taiwan. This is infrastructure for the 21st century, not roads or bridges, though those matter too, but the fabrication plants that make the brains of everything modern society depends on. So there you have it. 10 massive projects that'll reshape America by 2035. Some are about catching up to the rest of the world. Some are about preparing for climate change or geopolitical threats. Some are just fixing stuff that should have been fixed decades ago. Will they all get done on time and on budget? Absolutely not. This is America. We're amazing at innovation and terrible at building things efficiently. But even if half of these projects finish late and over budget, they'll still fundamentally change the country. And honestly, that's something worth paying attention to.